the age of muskets and military discipline. This episode dives into a turning point in warfare, when soldiers stopped charging in chaos and started marching in perfect lines. How muskets and volley fire changed battlefield tactics. The rise of strict military drill and soldier discipline. Prussia, France, and the Napoleonic war machine. How line infantry shaped the modern army. If that sounds like your kind of battle breakdown, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Shadowforce. It helps us keep bringing you deep dive military history, one war at a time. The age of line infantry was a brutal experiment in discipline and firepower. It trained men to become parts of a machine, precise, obedient, and lethal. But the machine of war was evolving, and soon it would be fed by iron, steam, and industry. In the centuries after gunpowder changed the face of warfare, armies across Europe found themselves grappling with a new reality. The battlefield was no longer ruled by knights nor by brute strength, but by firepower, formation, and above all, discipline. By the 1600s, the musket had become the weapon of the future. But these early firearms were slow to load, inaccurate, and often unreliable in wet weather. Alone, the musket was clumsy, but used in coordinated lines, it became a deadly force. This led to the birth of the line infantry system, a revolutionary shift in how battles were fought. Line infantry fought shoulder to shoulder, often in 2 or 3 ranks. When the front line fired, they would step back to reload as the second line stepped forward. This technique, known as volley fire, ensured a near-constant stream of projectiles against advancing enemies. It wasn't about hitting individual targets, it was about creating walls of lead. But for this to work, soldiers had to be trained like machines. The rise of the military drill, with step-by-step loading procedures and synchronized movements, transformed the battlefield into a choreographed theater of death. A regiment that could reload, aim, and fire in unison held a decisive edge, and this required months, even years, of discipline and instruction. The first large-scale test of these new tactics came during the 30 Years' War in the early 1600s, a conflict that ravaged Central Europe and killed millions. Commanders like Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden revolutionized battlefield mobility, combining musket volleys with mobile artillery and disciplined infantry. He's often called the father of modern warfare, for good reason. As the century progressed, European powers refined their armies further. The French line, under Louis XIV, emphasized volume of fire. The Austrians used deep formations to absorb cavalry charges. But it was the Prussians, under Frederick the Great, who pushed discipline to its extreme. In the 18th century, Prussian soldiers were trained with mathematical precision. Drill masters used metronomes and marching beats to perfect their formations. Frederick's doctrine was clear. The backbone of an army is not bravery, but drill. Disobedience was punished brutally. But the result? The Prussian infantry could fire 3 volleys per minute, faster, cleaner, and more lethal than any rival in Europe. Linear tactics also changed how armies responded to cavalry. Previously, heavy horsemen dominated the field, but now, densely packed musket volleys could break a cavalry charge before impact. Bayonets, attached to the end of muskets, turned infantry into bristling spears once the shooting stopped. This was the death of the medieval knight, not by duel, but by firing squad. Artillery too became integrated into these formations. Cannons were now moved with precision, positioned to break enemy lines just before the infantry advanced. The combined arms approach, infantry, cavalry, and artillery working in tandem, became the cornerstone of every serious European army. It was also during this period that the modern concept of rank and uniform took shape. Officers wore distinct insignia. Battalions had standardized colors and flags, not for fashion, but for organization and morale. A soldier no longer fought as a mercenary, but as a part of a nation's professional military force. All of this culminated in the Napoleonic Wars at the start of the 19th century. Napoleon Bonaparte, a master tactician, took linear warfare to its peak. His troops marched across Europe in columns, deployed into lines, and executed devastating coordinated assaults. What set Napoleon apart wasn't just his strategies, it was how he mobilized entire nations for war. Napoleon introduced mass conscription, the levée en masse, creating armies in the hundreds of thousands. He fused national identity with military service, giving soldiers something deeper to fight for. This spirit, the citizen soldier, would echo through every major war in the next 2 centuries. But the age of linear musket warfare had its limits. As weapons became more accurate and faster to load, these tight formations became easy targets. And as the 19th century advanced, new industrial inventions would soon turn war into something far more deadly. The age of line infantry was a brutal experiment in discipline and firepower. It trained men to become parts of a machine, precise, obedient, and lethal. But the machine of war was evolving, and soon it would be fed by iron, steam, and industry. If you believe military history shaped our world, then you've already joined the force. Hit like, subscribe, and share the mission. Shadowforce continues, and the next chapter awaits.